All right, everybody, welcome back to Perspective with Zane. I know it's been like so long since I've done a podcast, but I'm here with Ghazal. We got a special guest on the episode. Ghazal, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone. Tell them what you do and what you're about.
Hi Zane, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here today. So what I do is I help men with their relationships. I help them become more secure within their attachment style, mostly avoidant, high achieving men. The reason why I do this is because I notice a lot of successful men, they struggle so much within their relationships and their focus is just work, work, work so much to the point of um, they kind of put relationship on the back burner all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I noticed. I noticed that we are going through a pandemic or epidemic of vulnerability within men. And no offense to you, but I do see it with a lot of men. And and I do see that we needed a kind of female mentor for men.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I kind of pivoted because I used to be a relationship coach for both men, women, just attachment theory in general. But recently I pivoted, yeah, and I'm really happy. I feel aligned. I feel that it's my soul calling and the transformation that I've been able to make, blessed to make within the all my male clients have been so amazing that kind of led me to this decision.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's absolutely amazing. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. And I think you're absolutely right. There's a huge pandemic with men right now. You know, a buddy of mine I did a podcast with earlier this year, J.R. Harvey, he kind of does something similar to that extent of like personal development with men, but especially with like depression and suicide. And it is men are getting raked over the coals right now. And I think it's just a cultural thing of kind of how the world shifted. But I
Yes.
got a few questions for you that I think will be fun to dive into. And my first
So
question, I mean, you kind of answered it, but what made you become a relationship coach? Why did you want to do this? Why was this your thing? Or how did you end up in this space?
mm, very good question. So that is a very good question. The why is really so I found myself in a very long-term relationship that was just I was in a situation of I was anxious, he was avoidant, and it felt so frustrating that I just couldn't figure myself out and
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't figure himself out and it just felt like I was in a dead end. Like it felt like it was a dead end street. Like
Yeah.
I just couldn't go anywhere. And I just realized that I need to do something about this. And I started trying to step into my own healing journey, trying to figure out myself, get spiritual coaches, get therapists. And I noticed that once I started healing myself, the relationship became better.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that relationship didn't work out, but the whole point of me starting to kind of become a relationship coach and wanting to help others is because I found self-love within me. I
Mm-hmm.
found that my anxious attachment was lack of self-love and lack of self-worth within me. And so once that I had that aha moment that, oh, so now that I've helped myself, that I'm on a healing journey, that I'm not saying I'm healed. There's no ED healed version of us. I'm saying
Yeah.
that once I stepped into my healing journey, I realized that yes, let's say I'm chapter 10, I can help somebody who's chapter 1 on their
Mm-hmm.
healing journey. So, and it's such a rewarding, I can't even call it a job. It's like something I love to do every
Yeah.
day. And yeah, it's such a blessing to be able to help people within their relationships with themselves first.
Mm-hmm.
Because self-love and feeling of, you know what, I'm enough, I belong, I'm home to me.
Mm-hmm.
It starts from that. So that was a moment for me that, okay, I want to help other people. And I did. And I started, and just it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing journey.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you're absolutely right with like the teaching and stuff. You can always, there was a phrase I always heard. It was there's always somebody below you. There's always someone above you, but there's always somebody below you. And there's always somebody to teach or somebody who's coachable or someone that can learn something from you, whatever it might be. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, I think I kind of share a similar story of being, kind of in these wishy-washy situations and kind of not having a gauge on what's going on. And same thing, I kind of like pursued how do we fix this relationship or how do we fix this situation? And then I realized I'd always, almost 99% of the time, roots back to yourself. You have to work on yourself. There's something you can do, which I think is almost rewarding. It kind of gives you that control back where you have to let go of certain outcomes in certain situations, but it's like, okay, what can I do about this
Yeah.
situation? And then you get into that whole growth sphere and it's amazing. It's awesome. And then of course, yeah, you talk to somebody and you're like, try this. And then they do, and they come back, like, oh my God, that worked. That was amazing. I get it now.
Yeah.
Those aha moments are the most rewarding
Yes.
thing ever. Um, Now, what's the most common misconception about relationships that you encounter in your work?
Oh, very good question. The most misconception that you need to be healed in order to be in a new relationship. You need to heal
Ooh,
yourself fully.
that's a
That
good
is
one.
the biggest misconception. I mean, there's so many, but this is the one that comes to me now. That I believe that once you start stepping into your healing journey, once you actually decide these are, instead of pointing finger at the other, point finger at you and just say these are the stuff that I need, these are my stuff I need to work through.
Mhm,
This is my stuff. And once you start working through them, and your partner works through the his stuff, her stuff too,
mhm,
you don't need to be fully healed and just like
mhm.
now you have it stamped that you're healed, then go into a relationship or leave each other and just get become healed and then come back.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. So I believe that that is the biggest misconception. What do you think?
I think it's, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, it's a lot of work. That's something that Lindsay really hit home with me when we started to struggle and go through things. And she's like, we can either do this without each other, we can do it with each other. Like we're
Yes.
gonna do it either way. And that kind of was like this, aha moment for me, of like, yeah, you're doing life together with somebody. And I feel like we've lost that as a society where, yeah, we have this stigma and this preconceived notion that things have to be perfect. And then we get into something. And everybody's looking for, oh, well, if you're not serving me, if you're not doing something for me, it's this take mentality. Um, and it's like that's not a relationship. Everybody's good when everybody's good, but are you
Yes.
good when things aren't good? I
Absolutely.
yeah,
Amen to that.
I
Yes.
talk about this
Yeah.
metaphor of like a relationship is two people in the ocean. You're swimming in the ocean, right? And when your head's above water, you're good, you're great, you're having a good time, but it's a shallow relationship. Your head's above water. It's not
Mhm.
that deep, right? Everybody's good when your head's above water. You don't have to, you're
Yes.
not invested that much. You're not bought in that much. There's not a lot you've given away as far as your heart. But it's a shallow relationship. It's safe, but it's
Yeah.
shallow. And eventually you find that person that you want to swim down with, and you swim down, you swim down, you swim down. And the further you swim down, the more pressure builds up, right? Physics. You swim
Mhm.
down in the ocean, build all this pressure, and you swim down, 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 down. You got to find somebody that's willing to swim down with you and can
Yes.
actually stay down with you, and you get comfortable under that pressure. Like it's about finding somebody that's willing to do it with you. Now that doesn't mean, I think people flip that and they'll go, "Oh, well, I'm this train wreck of a person, but if you don't stay, then you don't love me." It's like, "No, no, 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 no. You don't force someone to accept all this dirt and grime, right? You got to work yourself out of it, but you find someone with enough grace and love to be patient with you and to follow that journey. And I get people all the time that are like, "Oh, how do I know when to leave? How do I know when to do this?" And it's like, okay, well, if staying with them helps them improve and they do make progress, even if it's slow, right? Because again, you're doing life together. Why do you need to be fixed
Mhm.
in a year? It's going to take multiple years. It takes time. You're growing. You got to water it. You got to give it sunlight. It's slow. It's a slow
Absolutely.
process.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so finding
Yeah.
someone to grow with you, as long as you're growing, then you're great. Now, if staying with someone makes the behavior worse or enables them and you're not making progress, you're not growing, then
Mhm.
you can, look at that. But as far as I think my biggest misconception, is that the biggest one I've learned is love is a feeling. Um, I think I take a very biblical approach to this in the sense
Mhm.
that God doesn't tell us to fall in love. Like, of course, you'll feel something, right? You feel a connection with
Yes.
somebody. I teach attraction is not a choice. You'll look at someone and within seconds, you're like, yes or no. But that being said, when you find that connection, when you find that relationship, love is a choice. Love is action. Love is doing. Love is, I don't really feel like it today, but I'm going to anyways, right? Because that's the choosing to do life together. Like I said,
Absolutely.
everybody's good when you're good, but can you be good when you're bad? That's hard. That's hard to wake up and be like, "Ooh, you're on my nerves today. I don't like you.
Mm.
You're pissing me off,
But I
but I'm
still
gonna
love
love
you.
you." Exactly. I'm gonna love you
Yeah.
anyways. And like I'm gonna do the love, right? God tells us to walk in love, not fall in love. And that's the problem is everybody just falls and falls out. And if
Yes.
your love is
Yes.
dictated on your feelings, I mean,
Yeah.
you have no control over that. You don't have control over your
Yeah.
feelings, not to that degree. You're still doing
Yeah.
life. So yeah, I think my biggest misconception is that people think
That's
love
so good.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
feeling and it just happens. And it's like, no, it's work. You gotta sometimes you gotta force it. And people are like, oh no, you shouldn't have to force it. It's like, well, it depends on how committed you are to somebody. When shit
Yeah.
gets tough and shit goes sideways and you're like, "Ooh, I really don't wanna do this, but I'm gonna force myself to talk to you with a respectful tone. I'm gonna force myself to give you my time and attention. I'm gonna force myself away from myself to you. You
Yeah.
have to deny yourselves. That's selfless love." And
Yes.
we live in a society
It's
that's
all the
selfish
small
love.
choices you make. It's all the choices. To me, I love what you said. All of what you said is just it resonates with me so much that love is a choice. I
Mhm.
love you even on a day that I don't like you
Mhm.
because
Absolutely.
I'm not going to like you every day. You might go on my nerves. You might make me feel like I'm something. You might make me feel frustrated about something, and
Yep.
it's inevitable. It's supposed to happen. Esther Perel says it best that fights are a must in a relationship. You're supposed to have disagreements. You're supposed to not like each other sometimes, but you
Mhm.
choose to love. As
Mhm.
you said, love is you don't fall in love, you walk in love. I
Mhm.
love what
Yep.
you said. Yeah. um the falling in love
Absolutely.
is it's like let's just feel the butterfly in my stomach. That's it. This is the one. This is the one that made me feel that way. And now that I don't feel that way, I don't
Yep.
I can't choose you anymore because I don't
Yep.
feel that way anymore.
And what kind of pressure is that to be in a relationship where the second the shoe drops, you're out? That that's ridiculous. That is nuts. I mean, how can anybody feel safe or feel comfortable when they're in a
Mhm.
relationship where like, oh, God forbid the second I do anything wrong, we're crumbling, we're falling apart,
Yeah.
or they're gonna leave me. That's not a relationship. That's not partnership. That's not companionship, right? There's no
No.
teamwork in that. Um, which is actually
Absolutely.
this is a great segue. I'm gonna hit you with a big, deep question here. But
Okay.
how do you think relationships have evolved with modern dating culture? I've had a lot. I mean,
Ooh.
so many of my students say we're in a pandemic right now where people have no clue what they're doing. Infidelity and cheating is the worst it's ever been. Insecurity is the worst it's ever been. Suicide's the
Yeah.
worst it's ever been. Divorce is the worst it's ever been. How do you feel about all this? What's your take on it?
It's so interesting that I've noticed the same. Um, I noticed a lot of situationship happening back in the day
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a little older than you. So I'm just gonna tell you about back in the day. Back in
Okay.
the day, let's say 20 years ago, we didn't have this situationship stuff. So if I compare it from like 20 years ago now until like now, it's I feel people are confused because
Yeah.
so much social media is do this to get the guy. Don't do
Mm-hmm.
that to get the girl.
Yep.
And it's just the lack of authenticity
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to dating. That's what's happening. The lack of authenticity and like, oh, I'm gonna just wait 20 minutes before I text him. Or I'm going to
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
this this is a notion of that's what it's just a vicious cycle. You do the same to him, he's gonna do the same to you, and like it's like the
Mm-hmm.
more you do this playing games, the more you're gonna put yourself in the cycle of situationships. And
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, it's a confusion that people are creating for themselves because they are falling into the wrong culture. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the business, you're in the business of creating a culture that's authentic,
Mm-hmm.
that you
Absolutely.
know what, show up with authenticity, and you're going to be loved. You once you love yourself and you're authentic to you, then people are going to love you for who you are. You're going to find that person that's not going to wait 20 minutes to message you because they're just going to be authentic. And you don't have to do the game thing that you've learned on social media.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe that's the situation. And it's what we put on ourselves. It's what the culture, it's like people are perpetuating this culture. They're feeding into it so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Once you go, like, let's say if somebody goes on Hinge, and if they look at people's values instead of pictures, that's what I also noticed. This is a side note. Instead of looking at pictures, instead of the superficiality, if that you look at people's values and you actually go with dating with, you know what, long-term values, go
Mm-hmm.
through that with long-term values, then you'll find yourself in more of authentic relationships, and you bring a culture to you. If dating culture is situationships, you go in and have the difficult conversation. You go
Mm-hmm.
in and tell them what I want. This is what I want. I want a long-term partner. I want to be date one person at a time. And if they say no, guess what, you're one step closer to your yes.
Right. Absolutely. Got to get through the no's to get to the yeses.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite quotes. I think it's by Jordan Peterson. He says, "You can have 1,000 fights with 1,000 different people, or 1,000 fights with the same person. And if you have 1,000 fights with the same person, eventually there's nothing left to fight about." And
Yes,
it's
I
so
love that. Yeah.
so true. That's why I always teach, like, you don't find soulmates, you make soulmates. You build them, you
Yes.
create them. Um, that's love. I mean, it's hard. I don't think people are like willing to understand the amount of suffering you kind of have to accept to really get through a long relationship. Like, people, look at relationships that are like 40, 50, 60 years. How many how many times do they have to forgive each other? How many times did they have to get over something? How many times did that relationship almost end and they kept coming back together? They kept figuring it out. They kept working on it. You know, it's one of the toughest things to understand is, um, at least for me, has been, as I get closer to, into Christianity and into my faith and whatnot, is, love like Jesus loved the church, and he
Hmm.
got crucified. He literally got crucified. Like, he died. He died for the
Yeah.
church. Like, God is telling you to die for someone.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and then he tells women, like, submit to your man or follow your man, trust your man, whatever. And it's telling women, like, submit to him. And then you have to flip it though and be like, are you a man worth Or are you a woman worth dying for? And are you a man worth
Worth
submitting to?
submitting to.
Exactly. And everything is twisted nowadays because everyone's fighting over um I like I don't like the conversation of like this battle that men can do what women can do and women can do what men can do. We're trying so hard to be the other person
Be the
instead of
other.
just being
Yes.
happy with what we have. It's ironic. Like you can do whatever you want, but why is it
Mhm.
a battle? Why is it a competition? If you want, if you want your relationship to be traditional in the masculine feminine sense, awesome. If you don't want it to be traditional, awesome. But why is it this battle? Why is it this fight? Like everyone's relationship can be its own, but you
Yeah.
have to embrace that. You have to be yeah, it's own your strengths. Everyone's trying so hard to sell themselves or to become
Yes.
something instead of allowing somebody to be good enough for them. I mean, we see it in day-to-day dating. Oh, you'd be having a conversation with somebody and she's like, "Oh, I like red cars." And the guy's like, "Initially, I like blue cars," but once he hears her she likes red, he goes back and he goes, "Oh, actually, you know what? No, I like red cars too." We're trying so
Mhm.
hard to find things in common with people because we're so desperate and needy for that connection. And that's the
Yeah.
problem, is that it's not real connection. That's when you got
Yeah.
to stop forcing it. Like you find someone that fits you. And that's why everything comes back to yourself. You have to own yourself. You have to own your own stuff. Who are you? Authentically, because yeah,
Exactly.
we got to work on ourselves. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
um and it's kind of this fine line between who I need to be and who I am, and finding somebody that aligns
Yeah.
with that journey, because you got to be going in the same direction.
I love that. And that goes back to authenticity. If you show up in dating with your authentic self, you're not going to piggyback on what whoever says and just say, "Oh, you like sushi? I like sushi too." I mean, if you like
Mhm.
sushi, great. If you like the traditional gender roles, great. Stick to your belief system.
Mhm.
With all that being said, I don't believe our belief system. I have a whole idea about our belief system that it's not written on the rock. You can change your belief system. Like I,
Mhm.
I picture our belief system like this is our bubble around us, sticky notes on the bubble. And our belief
Yeah.
system is like these sticky notes. You just pick up pick up one and look at it. Does it serve me still? If it doesn't, just scratch it and put a different sticky note.
Mhm.
But choose, have belief system, choose your authentic, choose who you are,
Mhm.
actually show up as who you are. When you don't have a compass for your vision, compass for who you are, you're lost going into dating, you're lost going into your life, and you're confusing everybody and bringing everybody down with your
Yep.
confusion. And that's
Yep.
what's happening in dating world right now.
I think everyone is so afraid of, like you said, the sticky notes on the bubble, or like, your bubble around, you get these sticky notes of what you believe and what you don't believe. Everyone's so afraid of making the wrong decision that they're waiting to find someone that'll choose for them. It's almost like we
Yes.
show up to dating and we give this person across the table a pen and we say, "I want you to write my beliefs and put it on my bubble." And that's never going to work. It is
No,
never, ever, ever going to work. It's no, you should have your beliefs. I should have my beliefs. That's why the first step in dating, no matter who you talk to or what you're doing, is what do you want? What do you want? And I ask people that. I'll be like, well, what do you want in a partner? And they're like, oh, the stereotypical, I want someone who's going to love me and be loyal and honest. And it's like, okay, well, what does that look like to you? And they're like, well, I don't know. It's like, then how do you know what you're going for? How do you know what you're fishing for? You're throwing your you're throwing bait out into an open lake filled with thousands of different types of fish, hoping you land one that just works. It's like, well, you
never
don't even know
works. Yeah,
yourself. And if you
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
yourself, then God forbid the partner, the fish you happen to catch, you're going to say, treat me right. They're going to say, how? And you're going to go, I don't know, because I don't even know what I want. how
Mm,
on earth can you expect someone to love you when you can't even give them some sort of compass, or you can't even give them some sort of guide? It's a dance. We teach each other.
yeah,
We learn from each other. That's the work in the relationship. That's the partnership. Hey, show
yeah.
me how to love you. And if that aligns with what I want to give you, then awesome. If it doesn't, also awesome. That means I'm not going to waste my time with you. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We don't This neediness and desperation is so bad, and I think it stems from social media and phones, and everything happens so quick. Everybody can get whatever they want so quickly, but not just quickly, artificially. Oh, we
So
want attention.
exactly.
We Yeah, we
You know what? You know what? People, human beings, this is proven that we don't do well with so many options.
Mhm.
So the dating world with dating apps, what's happening? This is something I wanted to add to what we talked about, what's different and what's contributing to this confusion and the indecision. It's the dating app. A lot of it has to do with the dating apps that as soon as I see something going on with this one, guess what? I this is an illusion of I have options. I'm going to go and swipe right 20,000 times until the next person, and the vicious cycle continues.
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
the illusion of option that's created between like amongst the people who are in the dating world, that that's creating this confusion for everybody too. You know what? I You don't like this? That's fine. I don't like the lack of compromise, even as on the smallest compromises. See, you know, when you go into a relationship, there are things you might not like and Lindsay might not like.
Yeah, 100%.
So if you were in the mindset of I have a lot of other options, you would just leave and be like, you know what? You don't like pizza with pineapple on it? I'm just gonna go with somebody who likes
Right, people are so
pineapple on
quick to leave.
pizza. That's it.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's a ridiculous example, but that's basically what's happening. And I see it with clients that, oh, he's not 6'2". I'm looking for a 6'2" guy. He's not um green eyes, or he doesn't have green eyes. Like it's just, and they're all superficiality.
Yep.
So coming away from that and knowing that, you know what? Yes, there are options out there, but being when you find somebody who's a gem, see their soul.
Yep.
Be authentic to yourself. Know yourself enough. See yourself enough. See your own soul enough to be able to see somebody else's soul and
Yep.
see their light. Like you saw Lindsay's light,
Yep.
right? And Lindsay saw your light. Be able to see somebody's light and actually say, you know what, I commit to this. I mean, obviously, um, not think that cheating and things like that. I'm not talking about that. I commit to this and I want to grow together. I want to love
Mhm.
you when I don't like you.
Mhm.
Even though there are 20,000 options out there available for me.
Yeah, you have to know where everyone has to know where their line's drawn in the sand, right? Like you mentioned cheating. I think for me, cheating, abuse or neglect would be like my lines in the sand. Where like beyond that, we just don't have a relationship. Like it just doesn't exist. If you're cheating on
Yeah.
me, the connection like that, I really don't think I could come back from that. If it's abusive, that's so far opposite of partnership and companionship, that's destruction. And then neglect, well, if we're not talking together, if we're not working together, if we're not connecting together, it's not that the relationship needs to end. It's just, there isn't one. There just isn't a relationship. Um, and it's interesting. Everyone wants to get into a relationship thinking, what can I take? Like you said, 6'2", green eyes, all these things. It's like, well, what if there was a fire? What if there was a fire or they got into a car accident and they lost their legs or whatever? Like, are you still going to love them? Can you
Yeah.
get in, instead of framing it from what am I going to get from this person? Frame it in what can I give? And do I have someone that appreciates my gifts or benefits my gifts or receives my gifts in a positive way? Do I have someone where when I give, it builds, 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 right? That's what we're looking for. But everyone is, no,
Yeah.
what am I gonna get? Because I need somebody to build me up. I have so many problems and I'm lacking so much or I'm, missing so much. I have this giant pit in my soul. I need someone to
Yeah.
build me up.
Yeah.
But you missed the point. I know Tony, I think it was Tony Robbins, says when a relationship is struggling, the first question you should ask is, what should I give? Usually it's because somebody's not giving. And that always should start
Mm,
with you first. Even if you feel like your partner is not, appreciating these things or feels like they're missing the mark or they're not whatever, whatever, whatever. What can you give to
mm,
them? And we have to get creative and we have to learn and decide, okay, how do I need to nurture this person so that they can grow? And then we got to work on growing together. And like you said, there's gonna be times you disagree and you have to figure out how to compromise. And
yes.
the scary part about it is no matter how much you want it, it's always going to be a two-way street. Like you just can't control the other person. You can't. And that's the
No.
scary part, right? Because you can always say, we need to grow together, we need to go, but they have to do it too. They have to want to grow
Yeah.
together too. And the most you can do is just, how can I love this person enough or in the ways they need it so that they can become the best version of themselves, and hopefully
Yeah.
they want to do the same with me. Um,
Mm,
yeah, it's
yeah.
deep. It's deep.
It is
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
what do you
I
think is the
noticed that with
biggest?
I noticed that with when you said it's a two-way street. It's absolutely true. I noticed that with anxious avoidant dynamic. Um Anxious. So going back to my niche, which is basically I'm attachment styles expert specialist,
Yeah.
and I've studied this for years to be able to understand my own attachment style and then help others. So with anxious, I noticed that um they resort to giving, people pleasing, and
Hmm.
then expecting that they think that they can give into to somebody loving them,
Yep.
give enough that it's like buying their love. And that is a battle with anxious attachment, that this is the inner struggle that they struggle with, to just give to themselves enough,
Hmm. Yep.
and knowing that, you know what, I need to fill my own cup, and the person
Yep.
who is ready to give me back the way I can, the way I love, the person will love me the same way. That person will come along, and then when the scale is actually, I'm not saying every day has to be even, but it mostly has to be even in a way that you're giving each other enough that you're meeting each other's attachment needs.
Yep. Yep.
That is a healthy relationship. And that's a struggle with anxious attachment. Once they realize that, you know what, I've given enough to you and I'm not receiving enough, and this is it for me, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
And that walking away from that, knowing when to walk away.
You got to take responsibility for your own happiness. Because then
Yes.
relying on your partner to make you happy is not only
Mm,
extremely hard of a task to do, but
yeah.
it's not practical. Um, it's not practical to rely on someone to make you happy, and it's also, like I said, that pressure of like, oh my God, I am this person's life. I have to be, not only do I have to be my own heartbeat, but I have to be their heartbeat too. Like that's
Oh,
just it's just
that's
not
so
gonna
deep. I
happen.
love that. Not only I have to be my own heartbeat, I have to be their heartbeat too. Yes.
Yeah, and that's where it's like, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful with how you approach those situations.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's give, give, give. But when you're so empty, everything you're giving is got this string attached to it of like, oh, please
Yeah.
fill me back up. Please, I'm exhausting myself trying to serve you, and I'm waiting for you to come back, and then you're building resentment. And then you have so many
Completely.
couples that are, they'll come to me and be like, well, I'm doing X, Y, and Z for this person, and I'm doing, all these different things, and then they just blow me off, and they don't care about it, and yada yada. And I'm like, well, that's a, that's a two-person problem. Why do you keep giving so much that their behavior then becomes
Mhm.
a problem for you? And they're like, oh well, because that's the way it goes. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a transaction. That's a transactional based relationship, and that's not
Yeah.
love. If you,
Yeah.
Corey Wayne says it, if you want a transactional based relationship, go and get a hooker. It'll be a lot less
That's so true. Yes.
It'll be a lot less emotionally taxing. It'll probably be a lot cheaper, and there you go. And then you can have a transactional based relationship. But if you want a real relationship with somebody, it doesn't work like that. It
Yeah.
doesn't.
It
It's give
doesn't. Yeah.
without the expectation of getting something in return. That's why it's
Yeah.
finding somebody where giving to them builds them in a good way. But if you're giving on with the expectation that they're going to build you, you're missing the point. You are
Yeah.
missing the point.
So you know what I told my client the other day, that he's the one that keeps giving, giving, giving. Well, that relationship ended. Now they're not together anymore. Um, so this is the analogy I used. You're using a cup that's empty. Not only the cup is empty, there are holes in the cup from lack of reciprocation in the relationship. There are holes that are
Mhm.
created in the cup. So even if your cup is like has a little bit in it, you're giving from that cup, and then the resentment builds more and more and more. And
Mhm.
if she gives you just a little bit to fill that cup, because of the resentment, which is the holes, your cup isn't full ever.
Yep.
So his cup was always empty with holes in it, and he kept giving and then expecting her with passive aggressiveness, backhanded comment that I've given you this, this, and this. And that's kind of what contributed with a lot of other things to the end of the relationship.
Mhm.
The whole tit for tat. I've given you
Mhm.
this, now you give me this. And her cup was also empty. Her cup was empty, and they both were trying to fill each other's cup with empty cups that had holes in it.
Mhm. Yep.
So, yeah,
Yep. You gotta figure out, how do I charge up my partner, but also how do I charge up myself? And not
myself.
put that pressure on my significant other. Um, I think a part of the issue with today's culture is this, nice guy. I say that that term is like the slang nice guy syndrome, where these guys are like, well, I'm going to buy her flowers. I'm going to take her out on this date. I'm going to compliment her a million times. And then at the end of the day, she's going to sleep with me. And it's like, no, no, it doesn't work like that at all.
No,
And I kind of, you teach the notion of, men are like dogs, women are like cats. A dog, he'll just love, 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 no matter what, just give, 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 give. And then cats, they come and go as they please. And oftentimes, when you stop trying to force a cat to give you attention, that's when they'll just come up to you and lay down and sit on your lap. And that's the thing, is what I see most of the time with, feminine energy, is they're going to do what they want, when they want, with who they want, and you have to let them. And if what they're doing doesn't align with your core beliefs, then you need to, again, let them. You have to make that decision for yourself of, do I want to be with this person or not? But you, in no way, shape, or form, if you try to control anything or anybody, it just derails the whole relationship.
yes,
You have
absolutely.
to, you can set boundaries, and I think that's kind of a fishy area where people get into, because it's like, oh, are you threatening me? Where it's like, hey, if you keep doing XYZ behavior, I'm probably not going to stay in this relationship, because that's not what I want for myself. And then, people are like, well, that's a threat and you can't be threatening the relationship. But at the same time, well, you can't stay in a relationship that you just don't feel comfortable being in. It goes both ways. Um, and that's where
Yeah,
that
yeah,
compromise comes into play. You work it
yeah,
out. Um, what do you think is the
absolutely.
biggest, like, barrier or the biggest hurdle that you see your clients have to jump through or
Hmm.
overcome?
It depends. When it comes to anxious attachment, the biggest one for anxious is um, being okay with not people pleasing, with not giving too much, and not protesting in a way, not being clingy and needy,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that they need to give themselves that love. And if
Mm-hmm.
is this an my anxious attachment thought, or is this an actual attachment need? With avoidant, what I noticed the biggest struggle is showing up with vulnerability, with emotional availability, and as soon as and being able to talk through conflicts and
Mm-hmm.
just stay 2 more minutes, let's talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
without the walls going up. um Whether or not they're female or male doesn't matter. This happens with anxious and with avoidant. That's a struggle that I do notice happening. And you mentioned something, men are dogs and women are cats. That's an interesting analogy. I see that, but I also did see the opposite too.
Yeah.
When men are the
Yeah.
avoidant men, which is primarily that who I work with now, um, they're the one running, and women are the one doing the chasing and doing the clinging on to needing, like text me back, you're not there for me enough, you're not emotionally available. And both of them have different works to do. The work for the woman in that situation is, you know what, sit in your feminine. If I look at it from feminine masculine perspective, sit in your feminine, be okay receiving.
Yeah.
And also when it comes to the attachment theory is give yourself the love, the whole um the the, the whole everything you need, give it to yourself and sit
Mm-hmm.
down. These are the areas that I actually need. These are my attachment needs. I need to feel wanted. You don't make me feel wanted. I mean, don't say it that way, use I statement, but I need to feel wanted. In order for me to feel wanted, to feel close to you, I need to have this whatever that I need from you.
Mm-hmm.
But sit and figure it out before chasing him. What are you chasing? You're chasing a high.
Yeah.
And the man numbing and the running just start, their work is to stop, ground, and just say, what am I running from? Go within, be present within you, ground yourself, and just have that difficult conversation and say, you know what? I do need space from you, away from you, maybe once a week, maybe 2 hours a day,
Yeah.
so I can collect myself back up and have those conversations. And then they realize once they do that, I see it in couples all the time, their relationship becomes a lot more, they can give each other love in the way that their attachment needs are actually being met.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's you have every I feel like they as an individual, people either just want to push or they just want to pull, but they don't want to learn how to do the other, right?
The
You have
other,
to learn how
yeah,
to push and pull, and you have to learn how to pull and push. And a lot
yeah,
of the relationship is developing the self-awareness to know when to do that in your relationship. Um,
yes,
and not only to do, when, but also just to communicate it. Just say it. Like just literally I there has to, and that's again it comes back to ourselves of like, are you self-aware enough to even communicate what's going on? um
yeah,
in your situation you have the woman who's putting in all this work, and I hear the conversation all the time of like, what can I do, how do we do this, how do we work on this, blah 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 blah, and then the guy's like, oh, she's nagging and nagging and nagging, and it's this battle. um where they both need to meet each other halfway, where he needs to step in and she needs to pull back a little bit and like, if she wants him to come to him, she needs to stop closing the gap. If you want him to come to you, then stop closing the gap. Let the distance be there, and when he's ready, he'll come back. And if he doesn't come back, that's your answer. Like, I hate to say it, but like, what,
absolutely.
because what's the alternative? If he's only with you because you keep roping him in, What is that? He's not on a leash. He's not a dog. You should be able to just let him go
Exactly.
and he'll stay next to you because he loves you. But if he's
Yes.
running off and chasing other things and he's not naturally just gravitating towards you, why do you even want him? Why you let
Exactly. If
go of
he's not
that?
curious about your inner world, what is it that you're just chasing a high that you,
Yep.
what these people with anxious attachment, what they're trying to fulfill is just anxiety. They're
Mhm.
feeding their own anxiety more and
Mhm.
more and more.
Yep.
And once they learn that, okay, I'm trying to close this gap and I just need to stop and give this space, give this time. Like music, I don't know if you play any musical instrument. The space in between,
Mhm.
if it doesn't exist, this space right now, the pause, if it doesn't exist, the suspense isn't built. The
Yep.
relationship doesn't mean anything if you're always
Yep.
together. There has to be a balance between togetherness and separateness.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And if you're always chasing togetherness, no matter if the person is avoidant or secure, they're going to get tired of it.
Mhm. 100%. 100%. Absolutely. Because you're just exhausting them. You're exhausting them, and it's just destructive. And you have to have that room to grow. Otherwise, you're just gonna suffocate somebody. Um,
Yes.
my last question to you is, how would you help couples transition through different life stages together?
Very good question. How do I help couples transition through different life stages together?
Yeah, like how would couples stay growing together? Like I always think of like two vines like interweaving as they
This
grow
is such a
to the
good
same
question.
direction.
So there's an activity I'd like to give couples is um do a monthly audit of a relationship and
Mhm.
just ask each other what is it that satisfy what is it that you're satisfied by when it comes to the relationship, what is it that you are not satisfied by, what is it that you need help with on a monthly basis. If you do this audit, if you actually sit down and talk about it, and because people change, people evolve.
Yep.
If you
Yep.
do this, let's say not even monthly, every 2 months, every 3 months, if you do an audit of the relationship and actually have a conversation about it and know that, okay, this doesn't work for me anymore. I want to do this in this way. I want to have a conversation about this in this way now and
Mhm.
write agreements together. I always tell couples, get a beautiful notebook and just start writing agreements. Every argument, at the end of every argument, you should have an agreement written that
Mhm.
that is for instance, an agreement could be no profanity.
Yeah.
If a profanity was used towards you, and I'm this is an extreme case, but an agreement could be um to feel close to you, I need you to compliment me. I
Yeah.
need to be complimented. That's it. That could be an agreement. And then you're kind of gradually you grow together, you learn each other's little quirks and then change it up. The agreement is not your it's not your Bible. It's like something that it's like a fluid document. You just
Yep.
work together creating that agreement and have those conversations and evolve when it comes to going back to your question. Every stage when you have that those conversations, every season you have those conversations, then you realize that you're just different people and you grew together 10 years down the line and you go back,
Yep.
wow, we've grown so much together.
Yep. 100%. I love that. I like that, writing down agreements together. That is
Yeah.
huge. And it's so simple too. It's those simple
Yeah.
little things, but it's nice little reminders,
Yeah.
it's nice little reminders to stay connected. And yeah,
Yes.
relationship check-ins. People got to do it because you're constantly relearning your partner. Like how you got them is how you keep them. And when you
Oh,
think
I love
about that,
that. Yes.
yep, how you got them's how you keep them. And what that entails is like, think about the first date. On the first date, you were so interested in getting to know this person. Don't let yourself fall into this trap of, oh, I know them. They're figured out. No, they will never be figured out. And that's also beautiful because it
Mm,
shouldn't get boring. It shouldn't get slow. It shouldn't get mundane to this, space where you're like, ugh, this is, doing the same thing over and over, or whatever, or people just feel like they lose the spark, which I hate that. Like, oh, we
I
lost the
hate that.
spark. It's
I
like,
hate
no,
that. Lose the
you
spark.
only you only needed one spark and then you started a fire and then you keep the fire going. And it's kind of
Oh,
funny
yes.
if you ever watch like a survival show, they'll spend, the first day everyone's frantic trying to get a fire started. And then they see a spark, everyone freaks out, right? They get the little
Yeah.
ember and then the fire takes off and everyone's jumping and celebrating and oh my god, we have fire, 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 fire. And then like a day goes by, someone gets complacent, gets used to the warmth, and falls asleep. And then they wake
Mm,
up and they let the fire go out. And
yeah.
it's like, why was it so exciting? It was exciting when you didn't have it. But then you had it, you stopped feeding it wood, you stopped giving it food and
Yeah.
fuel, and it went out. And it's the same thing in any relationship is you have to
Relationship.
keep
Yeah.
feeding the fire. You have to keep
Mm,
relearning. Hey, I noticed this month you're focusing on yada yada yada. How do you want me to show up for you? How can I support you this month? How can I support you
yeah.
in this thing or this journey or yada yada yada? How do you feel? How are you doing? And be open to that feedback and be open to
Yeah.
that work. Um, yeah, 100%. You only
Absolutely.
need one
Yeah.
spark. And also
You
one
just
person's go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I
One
was I was
person.
gonna say, yeah, one person's boring is another person's peace. One person comes home
Yes.
and they're like, "Oh, I come home to the same thing. Nothing changes. Blah blah blah." Is another person's. I get to come home to the same thing. It's consistent. I love it. Like one person's boring is another person's peace, and that's the difference between chasing companionship and novelty. If you want novelty, you constantly need something new and fresh. But if you want peace and foundation, you find something and you build it. You swim down
You
together.
build it. I love what you said. One thing I want to add about novelty is, I mean, according to Esther Perel, I love her. She's a psychotherapist. She talks about relationships do need novelty in order to thrive. However, it doesn't mean that you need to disrupt the peace to create that novelty. You can create
Yep.
that novelty by giving each other that little space in between the music
Yep.
notes. You can create that novelty by just creating those moments of, you know what, let's just do date nights, actually do date nights and not
Mhm.
go on to a restaurant together and be on your phones.
Yep.
Actually be curious about each other's inner world
Yep.
and do activities that is just not something you always do together once in a
Yep.
while. And you can create novelty like that too, but you can also have peace and consistency on a daily basis. And the combination of both creates this beautiful experience that is your relationship.
100%. Mix it up. Mix it
Yeah.
up. You could
Mix it
plan a
up.
date
Yeah.
night. If you do a date night every Saturday, mix it up. Do a date night on a Wednesday. And then
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
skip
I
a
like
week and
that.
then do two date nights the week after that. Or surprise date night. You get home, just say, hey, let's go get, I don't know, let's go get ice cream or something.
Ice
Something
cream. I was going
random.
to say ice cream.
Yeah, mix it up.
Yeah.
Mix it up.
Yeah.
Go crazy. Do fun little things here and there. It's always the little things. It is always, always, always the little thing. I think I've said this phrase more than I've said anything else. The big things are all too little, and the little things are all too big. Take care of the
Yes.
little things. Yep,
I like that.
100%.
I love that. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, this has been absolutely amazing. I'll wrap this up, but I want to give you a second to, tell people about yourself, where they can find you, what you got going on, and,
Absolutely.
just plug yourself in.
Yeah. So I have you can maybe add my Instagram. My company name is my Instagram handle is Inner Harmony Journey, and anyone who wants to find me, they can also find me on LinkedIn, and it's just it's just I right now I'm focusing on one-on-one coaching. Soon I'll create a community. But yeah, if you want to just DM me anytime, whoever wants to DM me, my DMs are always open, and always feel free to have start a conversation. I pride myself as being approachable and just having, because I believe creating like um I believe in creating relationships, obviously, but not just couples. I believe every relationship you build with any human being, those are just foundation of who you are. And so any relationship I build with anyone, my followers, the community, you, everyone, I put my 100% into those relationships. And I believe in showing up authentically pays off so much for your soul
Yep.
and nervous system, and for the world. It's like it trickles down.
Yep.
It's like a
Absolutely.
butterfly
One
effect.
100%. 100%. I absolutely love it. Well, thank you, Gazelle. I appreciate you so, so much.
I
And
appreciate you. Thank you
yeah,
so much, Zane.
thank you for everyone
This
listening
was
to the episode.
amazing. Thank you
And
for having me.
yeah, we'll bring you back. We'll bring you back. But
Yes,
all
absolutely.
right. I'll catch you guys in the next one.